मुबारक हो मुबारक सेहरा मुबारक मुबारक हो मुबारक हो मुबारक हो मुबारक सेहरा मुबारक 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 हो तुझे शादी का ये सेहरा मुबारक हो तो इंशाअल्लाह हमीद अब बन गया दूल्हा मुबारक।
So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I wanted to invite some of the young ladies. This is our first attempt, where we have what's called a tea and talk, where we wish, have tea and of course sweets, and then talk about topics dealing with the history of the Jamaat mainly, because we elders are returning, and a lot of what we did, all the things we did being with Shaji, we want to get this out to y'all so that you'll know what we did, what we had to sacrifice. Shaji told you that your parents have sacrificed a lot so that you can be where you're at this point. And we just wanted to think of what else can we give you that's not in videos, not necessarily Shaji's discourses, but just things he did with us. Historic things that we did before the advent of cell phones and, record everything. And because of this being the month of Mawlid Nabi, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I thought that one of the topics would be the first Mawlid that TMOA did in Brooklyn, New York. So, and unfortunately I can't even think of the year. I would have to really think of the first one. I want to say somewhere between 1982 and 1983. I'm thinking more so 83 because I made Hijra in 85. So we were still living in Brooklyn, and at that time there was two streets that the Muslims basically moved. There was an apartment complex between Georgia Avenue and Alabama Avenue, and Muslims started moving into the complex. And the landlord, the owners of the complex, was very happy to have us there because as we moved in, bad elements moved out. And they knew we didn't drink, we didn't fight, we didn't tear up apartments, we didn't do drugs, anything. So they were very happy. So basically we took control of Georgia and Alabama Avenue, and we raised our children with confidence that nothing would happen to them. And any other people that lived there was either respectful or they just stepped out of the way, even if they were walking down the street and they were talking with each other, cursing, when they got within earshot, they apologized because they knew that was considered disrespectful to the Muslims. So, Shahzad already came to the Jamaat the first time was 1980, and then we started hearing a lot about him in 1981. But we were still, some of us were still in Brooklyn. We had already bought the building on Van Sicklen Avenue, which was maybe about 9 or 10 blocks from where we lived. And that was our musalla, that was our school. So we were, prior to that, Madrasa al-Shahidain was in 3 different buildings, and we finally was able to move the whole school into one building. The first floor was where the Juma Salats, the congregational salats was done, the offices around the side. Downstairs was the harem where the ladies were. There was kitchen, other rooms, bathroom facilities, and upstairs was, on the roof was like a play area. So anyway, Shaji, with his wisdom of, teaching us and guiding us at our pace, I'll say. And I'm saying this to say that he came to us in the 80, but it was, I want to say 83, 84. But one of my children was born in 84, and he was born in Brooklyn. We had the school, everything going on there. I had not made Hijra to Islamabad, but I did the next year. So that's why I'm gauging it around that time. Some of the community had already made Hijra to California. That was one of the first big Hijras, the longest Hijra. But you had people out of Brooklyn going to California. You had people out of New Jersey and out of Philadelphia. So anyway, the families that were still left in Brooklyn, one day we get a call about the Mawlid. Now, to tell you the history of Mawlid, because of our training in the Dar, we were taught that you didn't make a big deal about his birthday of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. To the point that if you were teaching, when I was teaching, and we happened to notice, oh, tomorrow's, the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal, then we would give a class the next day. Okay, today's the birthday of our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and we give a whole thing about his family, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day we go into something else. And that was the extent of any type of remembrance or celebration. And so, because other Muslim countries, they have a whole big celebration. And Shaji too, I guess, being with us the first couple of years, he's like, how do I get them to this point, without them thinking I'm telling them to do something that they have been taught, we were taught, you don't do. This was considered blasphemous. This was considered, it's the famous word, bid'ah. So anyway, I think because we grew to love him, and one of the things I have to say, Shaji, when he first came, he said, read Holy Quran from cover to cover, and then read Sahih Bukhari hadith, and I think that's 8 or 9 volume hadith. Read it like a book that you read at your table. So when I tell you something, you will know that this is coming from Holy Quran or hadith. So by that time, as time went on in between classes and reading and dhikrs and what have you, we had, even though we had bayat with him, those who did, we still, our trust and our iman in following him had gotten stronger. So this particular year, he wasn't in the States, he was out in Pakistan, but he sent a message telling the administration that he wanted us to have a Mawlid celebration. And we're like, okay, what is that? He said, get lights. Tell the ladies to light up the windows. And I think it was like spring, so there were no Christmas lights. It's like, where are we getting lights from? I remember asking my mother for her, can I borrow your Christmas lights? And she's looking like, well, it's not nowhere near October, November, December, and you don't celebrate Christmas. I said, I'll give them back to you on your holiday. I just want the fire. So at that time, the lights were like this thick, those big light bulbs. So I went to her house, got all her lights, and some of us decided, we're going to ask our parents because there was none in the store. And some of us was able to string lights in our windows. My apartment had a large window facing the courtyard or the park, and anyone walking up or down the streets can see it. So can you imagine all of a sudden non-Muslims are walking up and down George Avenue and they're seeing Christmas lights in some of the houses in whatever the month was, April, May, June, whatever. And then he said, and when you didn't make posters, have the children make posters, have the adults make posters. And we're like, okay, because you're going to put them on display. So we're thinking we're going to go to Van Sicklen, to the Musalla we had there, and maybe do something inside, because that's usually where we have all of our programs. So that morning he sends a message saying, Shaji sent a message saying, have a parade. Like, what? He said, have a parade, tell them to come and start from George Avenue, and they're going to walk up to the corner, come back down, come across Alabama Avenue, then get to, I forgot the name of the avenue, but you're going to then walk the 10 blocks to Van Sicklen. And we're thinking, seriously? Okay. So I remember a lot of, they set a time for us to come outside. We came outside and we were in Georgia Avenue, and I lived on Georgia. And we came out with our children, and we had garlands around there. I don't know where we got the garlands from. Maybe we made them something around their necks. We had banners. We wrapped green turbans on our boys and green something on us. And they said we were going to stand outside and we're going to recite Dawood Akbar. Like, okay. And that's the long one, right? So we're doing Dawood Akbar, and non-Muslims are walking. We're not in the some men were in the streets. We were stepped in the streets. No, we were on the sidewalk. Sorry, on George Avenue we were on the sidewalk because we weren't blocking traffic. And back then you had to have permits to do parades. I think you still do. But anyway, we blocked the sidewalk, which caused non-Muslims to walk around us, looking like, what the heck are they doing? And we're sitting there doing Dawood Akbar. And I think we did Kun Kun Ya Habibi Kantana. And then we're like, oh, proud Muslims, you know. So we had a photographer that was taking pictures, and then they said we had to march like in a parade. So we went into the streets, and we're going up Georgia Avenue, and non-Muslims were looking at us, and the Muslims that weren't with us thought we were out of it. What is this Sheikh Jilani telling them to do now? We get up the streets, we come down, and we're on Alabama. We stop, and they said, now we're going to do Dawood Taj. So we're in the middle of the street singing Dawood Taj, banners. We're like, oh, we're just so happy, so proud to be doing this. And I remember there was a lady that was, they were with us during the Dar. Her husband made Umrah. Her husband went on a killer with Shaji, came back and decided, I'm not going to be a part of this. But she was still kind of wanting to be a part. So she came downstairs. I remember she was standing on Alabama Avenue next to her building, and she just stood there with us. And I remember thinking, oh, God, I wish she could just be with us. She looks like I really would if it wasn't for my husband. I'd be right there with you. So we did Dawood Taj, and people are crying. And back then, Dawood Taj was so emotional for us. Another story. It's emotional Dawood, and people are sitting up there crying. And then we got a message that, you know, because I guess they had wrote down everything we're supposed to do, and he says, okay, now we're going to start walking to the Musalla Van Sickle, again, 10 blocks away. So here we are, strollers, babies holding arms, whole thing. We get to the corner of Livonia Avenue. That was it. We make the left turn, and we're walking 10 blocks in the streets. The men are on the outside, making sure that, and they're blocking traffic. We didn't care. Oh, is that a green light? You know, red light, we're going. And people were blowing horns, and the men were looking like, try it. And everyone knew, okay, we're going to just let them. We walked 10 blocks, you know, we were so proud Muslims. And we get to the building, and we go inside, and like I said, the harem was downstairs where the women were. It's a big room. Big, like 2-3 times this size. And the men were upstairs. So we're downstairs, and you know, the kufa is being given, or waz rather was being given, discussion about Mawlid, why we love Rasulullah. So then Shaji said, you know, oh, he had told us to write knots. And we were like, what is a knot? We had never done that before. So we were asking, and he said, write poems about Rasulullah, and you're going to say them. And it was like in the afternoon, we would go home after the program, write up these poems, and then come back, and we're going to have like the second part of the program. We had no idea. And then we thought, the men were saying, oh, y'all got to do this. And then Shaji called and said, no, the men and the women have to do knots. And they're like, what is it? We had never even heard of a knot before. We did not even realize, I mean, we had never heard of it. We didn't know what to do. And so when we started writing, all of our poems and everything, of course, was in English, because, you know, we didn't know what to do. And some ladies, I remember people were saying, well, we supposed to do this because isn't this a little bit like, you know, are we supposed to do poems? And, well, the Sheikh said to do it, we're going to do it. We don't, you know. And when we went home after they had something light to eat. We went home after the program. We came after the march. We came back that evening, and people started getting up and reciting poems. And that, I think, for people was like, okay, we can just express ourselves, you know, in English, right? So what I didn't know, there was some men overseas, and Shaji had them doing that too. And I think Uncle Sully was there, Uncle Sully Muhammad. And I remember seeing a video of the Mawlid that he did there. And they had one of the brothers, Khalid Khawaja. He was the first one to do, Shaji taught him to do Darul Salam, our Darul Salam, that we thought for weeks that he was speaking in Urdu. We didn't know it was in English. So that's how thick his accent was. So somebody slowed it down, like, wait a minute, these are English words. But anyway, he used to do a lot of reciting. So he was reciting this knot. And then another brother did one in Hindi. And then Uncle Sully, that's when he did Mawlid the Nabi. And I remember looking, and I remember thinking, and we may have to edit this, why is he doing an English knot? And he's singing this, no, not Unofficial. No, Mawlid did not. That was the first time we had heard it. And we were like, wow, you know, this was fantastic. But because the first Mawlid, us from coming from a generation of that thought it was haram to even celebrate, and then to see each year how much we progressed, because that year it was just Brooklyn, and then the next year Shai said do this, and then have people come, and then have people come, and even like when we started coming down here from a lot, and we would, oh my gosh, you remember those, we'd be outside all day singing, and or in the Musalla, no, in the shrine, and then we would stand outside and do Darul Salam or Darul Taj, or we would just show the love that we have for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Real, and me being an Islamic studies teacher, feeling so horrible when I realized the things that I was taught in our days, and then I taught other children about, we don't do this, you know, and I had to seek serious forgiveness for that. But wanting our kids to know, yes, what we've gotten a lot. I want to say, like before Shaji passed, well before, when he would of course send directives, and we would just come together, like just bombard South Carolina. You know, I remember Shazi putting you out your house. You know, your mother was never home. You know, she was like, I'm here doing this, and so many, we just came, and doors were open because we just knew we had this love for Rasulullah that we would do this, and we opened up to everybody. But remembering how the first one, where there may have been apprehension, like what are our neighbors going to say? What are people going to say? Look you know, we did it, but even walking is thing like, I'm glad that the men are here, because we probably would not be walking 10 blocks from down Livonia Avenue, passing, I mean, we were in the ghetto, and walking under an overhead train, and cars coming and going, but we did it because Shaji said do it. And we may not have had all the love built up for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but we were working for us, and he was working with us. Again, he could have told, if he had maybe said it from day one, we'd have said, what? We don't do that. So, but he took his time. He took his time when he taught us, he trained us, he prepared us, he had us fall in love with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, so that when it was time to do this, to show this, we could, and we can pass it on to our children and grandchildren, etc. But just the men in the streets, but the fact of just because he said to do it and explained why to do it. Like, you know, you had this, I've given you this, now do this. And the children, I remember my Ibn looking up at me like, what are we doing? You know, just march, just go to march, you know, we're gonna do this. They didn't know, but they, as each year of us doing something, they grew to love. And so that was the first Mawlid, and again, that was the first one that TMOA did in the United States, and it was done in Brooklyn, in the ghetto area, Georgia and Alabama. I think the next year Shaji told us to move. And like I said, we thought we were doing something great, because we had moved and taken over all of those buildings. The apartment complex must have had maybe like 20 buildings. And in one building, each building there was at least one Muslim family, in some buildings 2 or 3. My building had 5 or 6. And it was only six apartments, and we took over all, you know, so we thought we're doing so, oh yeah, we're establishing an Islamic community, Islamic village. We had no idea. Shah was like, what do you know, he was there, and he stayed at our homes, and he would walk in the park. So we learned, Shaji was so patient with us and helped us to be better parents for our children. So now y'all know you don't have to speak often. Do you want to fast?
Assalamu alaikum, ladies.
So basically that was it. And like I said, I don't even know if or where pictures are of those. I know people took, like Abdul Salam, Auntie Majida's father, she was one of the photographers in the Jamaat. But I have no idea where those pictures are. But those of us who were there, I think we kind of remember. So, alhamdulillah. And that's it for my story, short and sweet. I'm not sure. I think he did put out the Sheikh at that. Because I don't know. I remember he did put out the Sheikh. But I seem like that he might have wrote but didn't record. No, it's possible.